Hey there, welcome to the Golden Moment podcast. I'm Mijo Biscan. So in today's episode, I had a conversation with Callum Barter. Cal is a Melbourne-based sound engineer of all stripes. In the studio, doing live stuff, he does it all. Callum's worked with a very impressive roster of Australia's kind of top artists, including Grammy nominee and 4-time ARIA Award winner Courtney Barnett. He recorded and mixed Kurt Vile and Courtney Barnett's album Lotta Sea Lice, as well as working with ARIA-nominated duo Big Scary and UK's electro-soul artist and producer Sampha. Cal's worked as a live front-of-house engineer for Big Scary, Japanese Wallpaper, Vance Joy, Courtney Barnett, Saskwatch and Bill Callahan, to name a few. So he's done some stuff. Another string to his bow is his solid mustache, which upon first sight made me fall in love with Cal. We also, in this episode, he shares the story of the mustache. I bring it up in passing and he's like, well, there's a story about the mustache, which is quite interesting and maybe integral to his success as a sound engineer. So I got to know Cal when I was looking for an awesome studio to track the drums, bass and guitar for my recent album Golden Moment. And he was working at Newmarket Studios in North Melbourne. So I went through the studio with him. He played me some of his work and I just got a really good sense that this is a good human who knows what he's doing and he's going to take care of my music. So that was some of the main reasons I decided to record there. I actually checked out about 12 studios around Melbourne to kind of make my final pick. And so I went there. So in this conversation, what we went through was Cal's journey from starting out studying IT straight out of high school and then realizing that really wasn't his path. And then eventually that journey leading him to working with some of the biggest indie bands in Australia and really in the world at this point by working with Courtney Barnett and Kurt Vile. And he also did the live sound on Courtney Barnett's most recent USA tour. So in the chat, we also talked about his big move to LA. So he moved to LA soon after we recorded the album, actually. We talk about risk-taking, the importance of a positive attitude, and much, much more. So without further delay and hammering on, here's my conversation with the excellent Callum Barter. Here I am with legendary Cal Barter. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All the way from LA right now. Melbourne based, but in LA, which we will get to.
Absolutely. It's in always sunny LA.
Yeah, I noticed you're in a t-shirt. So for you, it's afternoon. For me, it's morning. I just got up, got my jumper on. I've got thermals on, got a heater going here. I'm in Melbourne, which you're probably not missing. Last night, the weather was crazy.
Right.
High winds, rain. So tell me about LA weather right now.
Well, it's probably like low of 17 throughout the year. So that's the lowest. And then
wow. And
then high of, especially we're on the west side. I'm in Culver City, which is the west side being the beach side. We're like 2 miles from the beach, from Venice and Santa Monica. And so we'd be between 5 and 10 degrees Celsius different. No, maybe not 10, 5 degrees Celsius different from the east side, which is Silver Lake, Echo Park, Hollywood.
Oh, right. Wow.
So in there, it can get to like 35, but it might only be 30 here in the heat of summer. Yeah, but it's great. Really, like it ranges. The medium would be like 25. It's awesome.
Yeah, almost, that's so good.
Yeah.
Which matches your t-shirt, which is easy days. Easy sunny days. Oh, that sounds great, man. Yeah. So I probably should introduce you a little bit, but so you're an audio engineer, producer, mix engineer. I'm sure you do some mastering. You've done live mixing of bands. You've worked with great artists over the years. You're also a musician. What do you play as a musician?
I guess I would say I'm a drummer. Is my
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I used to play in a few bands, but sort of not really in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But I do play, and I can noodle on guitar and noodle on the keyboard, but I'd say drums is my main instrument. But not playing a lot now means that like in a band where I'm well practiced, means that I just play on sessions where, and now here I've got in my studio, I've got a little drum kit and I've got some guitars and amps, so it'll be throwing layers down. Because usually now when I'm working with someone in person here, which is not happening right in these very months, but, I'll be doing, it'll be the artist, which is usually a guitarist or keyboard. They're good at their main instrument and singing usually, and then I'll play some drums and some pieces.
Cool. And so, so in the last, couple of years, you mainly been focused on kind of mixing and engineering and recording.
I've basically been an engineer for 15 years, maybe getting on a bit longer than that now. And in the last 2 years, I've been in June this year, it'll be 2 years in LA. And so since being here, that's been predominantly mixing work with both American artists and lots of Australian artists, because I've still got the ties to the Australian scene. So mostly mixing. I guess I love both. I love recording. I love tracking. And with my time at Newmarket in Melbourne, where we did the album together, it's a great space to record a live band, which is exactly what we did. And so that's one thing that I don't get to do a lot of here, and in such a space I couldn't do it here. But it's been that's one thing I've missed. But I guess purely just by my location and being away from Australia, and a lot of mixing work doesn't have to be with the client. It can be sometimes with the artist. A lot of it, especially the initial stage, is all done by myself, and then the artist will send notes, or they'll come in and make some changes.
Cool, great. It is amazing what technology allows, just like shifting files back and forth. Even not too long ago, it was still a challenge, like to have something like Dropbox or whatever have enough space. But now there's just so much online cloud storage or whatever, like Google Drives and.
Like a guy from the UK sent me a song this morning or overnight, of 8 gigs of data, and the internet here is so fast. So within 20 minutes, I've downloaded it and I'm into a mix.
It's phenomenal. It's so amazing.
10 years ago, it'll be posting the hard drive and waiting 3 weeks for it to come.
Exactly. Cool. Well, maybe let's go back in time to sort of how this journey started, because before we started this chat, we talked about how people go on very different journeys to get to where they're at. Like there are lots of different ways, avenues in to what you do as a musician, as an engineer or whatever. And so where did things sort of initially start for you? Where was your interest in music peaked?
Well, I had a very musical family. I loved music and learned guitar when I was, I can't remember what age. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5. Like prep, very early school, started learning guitar, or learned piano first and then learned some guitar. High school, started learning drums, and then so always interested. And then when coming into VCE, not knowing what to choose for university, such a daunting thing, like you're choosing the rest of your life when you're 17 years old. And my thought process was to choose something that wasn't music and keep music as a hobby. to sort of get a money-making job, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going into computer science, which I think only because I had the scores for it. Had I had not got the scores, I would have gone straight to music, and I think I would. Nothing, I'm no regrets at all, but it would have been a quicker process. But I tried that for a couple of years, and it was just so dry, not creative, especially not in the early stages. So I left that, and then I started studying at RMIT in the music industry technical production. And that was the first time I'm always interested in sound, and like my dad played in a bush band, and he'd have this crappy little PA in the back of a trailer, and I'd love to set that up.
Right.
But not much of an idea beyond, plugging a guitar lead into an amp. Yeah. And then I remember in that first few weeks of RMIT, that especially in the studio sense, the lecturer showed us a Pro Tools session. It was just some daggy song, and there was a bass mistake, and he just fixed it. And it was the first time I'd ever seen that.
Right. Just like a cut and a paste.
Yeah, so simple. We would do that with our eyes shut now.
Yeah.
And
so what year roughly was this then? So this must have been very early days of Pro Tools.
Yeah, that was year 12 was 2001, 2, 3, 2004.
Okay, right, yeah.
But that was Pro Tools either 4.9 or 5.1 or something like that.
Yeah.
We're at Pro Tools beyond 12 now. It's definitely pretty basic back then. Yeah. But so then from then on, it was actually quite good because I went to university doing computers, and it was I sort of learnt how to and how not to go to university. If you know how to not be hungover, not be listening, taking notes. I went from basically not being interested to going there, and I was front row asking every question, writing out notes, and just
there's a lot of parallels in our story here. Yeah. When I finished high school, I wanted to do music, but it was the top pick. Wanted to go study jazz guitar in Geelong, where I grew up. And I crossed it out, and I went and did building design and drafting because my dad was a builder.
Oh yeah.
And it was a more money job, money job thing. And then it took me years to come back to it. So when I went back and did that music course, but I was 27, 26, and I was front row, just drinking it up. So yeah. I was total nerd. Yeah. And I was never like that in school, in high school or whatever. Yeah. Well, so that's really interesting.
My thought is that we wouldn't have been like that had we gone straight to it.
Yeah. Because I agree.
The freedom of being out of home, and I moved from the country down in South Gippsland to Melbourne, the big city, all sorts of distractions. So
I'd worked full time as well. I studied that building design, then I went and worked for 7 years or whatever, 6-7 years full time in an office, and I was like, oh my god. So I really valued education. I could go back and and I saw all the youngsters who were coming in from high school, and they were just faffing around and not really taking it seriously. And I'm like, oh my god, you don't know what you're missing here. This is an incredible opportunity. You're sitting here all day learning music theory and practicing, and it blew my mind. But I think you're totally right. I may not have appreciated it.
Yeah, I'm sure we would have loved it. Yeah, but to that degree. So in a sense, my wasted 2 years were perfect.
Yes, yeah.
So then I went to in that first year, in my course at RMIT, then there was 70 kids in that course in the year, split up over 3 or 4 classes. And then throughout that year, there was probably at least 40 would have dropped out, I'd say.
Oh, wow.
Hold on. No, at least 30. So it was less than half. say 30 dropped out and there was 40 left
Mm.
at the end. And then the next year was the first year they offered 2 years.
Oh, right.
And it was TAFE. And back then the TAFE support, financial support was incredible.
Yeah.
My second year, I shouldn't tell you how much it was. Well, it was $196 my second year.
Yeah. It's wild.
It was like incredible. And I'm still paying off my HECS from my computer.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah.
So then I did that. Should I keep going on my
Yeah.
tree?
Yeah, on your meteoric rise. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I went from there, and then being so interested in it, and then learning about like work experience and the possibilities of where and how to do work experience and to experience in every avenue of sound, basically. And my friends were playing in bands, so I would go to the pub and mix their band, go to some terrible venues, and I slowly started buying a couple of core elements, like a good vocal mic, and all of that, especially because my friends' bands at the time were not known or anything like that, so they weren't playing it anywhere established. So things like a graphic equalizer that wouldn't be in some of the venues. It's just like a mic and a PA. That's it. Yeah. So I bring a few core elements to do the job somewhat properly.
Yeah.
And it was really great because then the PAs are bad, the bands are bad, I'm bad.
Yeah.
Learning it all and trial and error, and it becoming quite. It was a great way to learn because it's like, well, not going to do that next time. Yeah. Signal path, lots of in so many different ways, and then through that, I would meet the bands that are opening for them. Yeah, and it went from mixing my friends' bands for nothing to a little bit of cash here and there.
Yeah,
and so I was doing that, and then it was the end of that first year at RMIT. I contacted the manager at Newmarket Studios, where we did film, and I started work experience there. So I've theoretically been there for my whole career.
Yeah, right. Yeah, cool. So you did your work experience there.
Yeah.
And how long did that go for? Was that just like a couple of weeks, and then how did that transition into you being there?
It sort of started as going there for work experience, which was you sort of go for just any particular days that are suitable to the session, because sometimes it might be not suitable to have anyone in. So I would just come in here and there, and I just got to know the manager and I got on really well, and they just put in Pro Tools the year before I was there. It was fully analog before that.
Right.
And so the manager, Ben Hurt at the time, was awesome on analog, and he was just learning Pro Tools. And
right.
A year at RMIT learning Pro Tools. So I was an asset to him because I was over the Pro Tools side of things. Somewhat. Not over it. I understood some of it.
Yeah.
And so, and it just evolved into lots of work experience, which is just a name to put on unpaid labour, basically.
Yes.
Not because he didn't want to pay me, just because there's no money. Because the bottom line is that for a studio to survive, like, they can't really be paying anyone.
Yeah.
For work experience. So then and you just have to charge the artist more, which is just not, it's already hard as it is.
Yeah. Everyone's trying to keep that cost as low as they can to make it work.
Yeah. And then I remember it was probably at least a year later, and me being in there regularly. So probably halfway through the next year, while I was still at university, he texted me saying, "Are you free on Friday to do a paid Pro Tools operated job? $100, 12 hours." I was like, hell yeah! Paid to be in the studio. So and from then on, it just slowly went, and I was basically doing assistant things, and then slowly bringing in bands that I'd met from doing those live gigs with my friends, and then my friends and friends of theirs, and the circle expands. And then bringing the studio, and then and then probably I'll just keep charging on. Then at the same time, I had a friend worked at Federation Square for the production company, and he worked in AV there. And so I had some work experience there, and that was in the same year as well. Basically, I was just diving in anywhere I could. And that they lots of bigger production, some small, some book launches, some poetry readings, and then some big concerts for anything from PBS to Australian Idol. It's like
right.
And my first day there was a Sunday morning. This was my first work experience day.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, the Sunday before the AFL Grand Final.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, 3 a.m. start, and I setting up a PA for basically Grand Final week at Federation Square.
Right.
A bunch of PAs because there's the screen and there's all sorts of things going on.
Yeah.
So, and I was worked probably 11 hours that day, starting at 3 a.m. And then that was the start of, I guess, that, and from that it turned into a paid job. So then he offered me, and liked what I did. I was tried to be as what's the word? Just tried to be as useful as possible. Yeah, not knowing anything, because that's a much higher level. A little 8-channel mixer at a pub to suddenly a proper PA line array or something like. Really guessing my way through it. And asking questions, and so that turned into paid work, which was great, because then throughout the next sort of 3 years, let's say from then until 3 years later, that turned into lots of. I was doing this other non-music related job. It was selling ball bearings, just something completely unrelated, but
amazing. That was like a made-up job. To make for a good story.
But so that was my sort of cafe job, and then probably over the course of the next 3 years, I was able to leave the cafe job, and then everything I was doing was music. Not necessarily music, but audio. The audio visual stuff was not music, but it was all to do with speakers and microphones and yada yada. So that moment, which I think is the thing that really helped me, was to get lots of different avenues in anything to do that's closely related to the industry that I was interested in. Music was the main focus, but anything to do with audio is great, So then focusing on that, so with lots of fingers in lots of pies, so then rather than, because the ball bearing job was kind of a waste of time, except money. So get out of that.
Pay everything, the rent, all that.
Yeah, that's right. But so then once I could pay the rent from mainly there was the Fed Square job, everything was beneficial, because there I'd meet other engineers who were then mixing a gig at a pub the next night, and it's like, I can't do Friday, can you do it for me? That way. And it just expands the network, basically. And then I'd meet bands there, and then I'd meet engineers, and I'd say I'd work at Newmarket as well, and they'd say, come over here. And then probably, I can't remember what time it was, but within this sort of 3 years probably, my friend was working at, a friend who I went to RMIT with, he was working at Bakehouse Studios, which was, the studio was in North Fitzroy at the time. And I started doing some work there with them. And a couple of years later, I ended up taking over his position there. So I was sort of at Newmarket and Bakehouse, but sort of more of a junior engineer at Newmarket and senior engineer at Bakehouse. So, and I spent probably like 7 or 8 years at Bakehouse, I think, on and off. Like it was never full time at either of them.
Right.
Just freelance at all of them, basically, all of these jobs.
Yeah.
And and that was great because Bakehouse, Helen and Quincy have done such a great job of creating that community that they have. And then the studio being connected to the rehearsal rooms, there's so many bands that know that studio.
Yeah.
So at the time it was a lower level studio than Newmarket, so it was half the price.
Right.
So it attracted a lot more clients. Not all of them necessarily good is subjective, but it's just a bigger network.
Maybe earlier in their career or something to get some demos or EP together or something.
Exactly. And then sometimes these amazing artists would come in because of Helen and Quincy's connections.
Yeah.
So then basically the bottom line is that I just had lots and lots of fingers everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
In different studios, in different venues, in different gigs, in different bands, and then bands, friends of friends of bands.
Yeah.
Just goes on. And then I think through that and then the live work turned into touring work with bigger bands.
Yep.
Where they could afford to fly me around, and like over the course of, now we're sort of scooting ahead a few years, but
yeah.
And then once you're touring with the band and then you meet other bigger bands, then they're like, oh, if he's good enough to mix them and it sounds great, it's heard his mix, it's great, so we'll use Cal for the next tour.
Yeah.
And then it really helped my studio career to be working with the higher level indie bands.
Yeah.
Because I'd meet them where if I wasn't out touring, I wouldn't have met them. I'd be just in the studio and just meet the one or two band that would come in. Bands. So then expanding my network even more so. Yeah. At a higher level. So that one, I think once my live work turned into touring work whilst I was in the studio, that really, really benefited my I guess my credit list. Yeah,
and everything kind of starts to feed. Oh, I guess it's like this slow upward spiral. So there are a couple of really standout like patterns of what you're talking about here. The first is like the willingness to just jump in and do anything, like and anything kind of music related, and just say yes to everything. Unpaid, absolutely. Shit venue, bad band, whatever the conditions.
But it's music, so it's great. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's just to like hone the skill, just like time in the saddle, like just getting familiar with everything and becoming very versatile in all the different situations, understanding digital recording, analog recording, just having every tool available to be able to do it. The other part is the second part is the networking part. So just how that's like this ever expanding circle that I guess starts to build a gravity that pulls in bigger and bigger asteroids in the universe.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
And and then that helps with more experience, higher level touring, mixing experiences, better skills, better network.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a really slow snowball that just gets bigger and bigger, and
it's a slow burn. I think I have, I'm just projecting here, but I think in our culture today, everything kind of, people want things very quickly, and if they don't see results immediately, they're just like, this doesn't work, or I'm out of here, or whatever. So that slow burn thing, what do you think got you to continue, within that slow burn in the beginning, like when you're not seeing, I don't know, you're not doing the greatest jobs or whatever? What's like the main thing think kept your interest? Or
it's a good question. I think my love for audio, I guess, which I didn't necessarily know that I had until I started studying it. I knew I loved music. There was no question about that. Very musical family, like I knew that was there, but my family's not very technical. They had a couple of amps at home, but you know, like nothing beyond that. So as far as I guess it was a friend, actually the friend who got me the work experience at Federation Square. He was my friend from school. Her boyfriend worked there. He was a couple of years older than me. And he had done it the same course.
Fly buzzing around in here, sorry.
Get rid of it. I was, so he had done that RMIT course.
Yeah.
I think, or a similar course. And I was talking to him about potentially going to study sound and stopping the computer thing. And he was like, well, you know, if you're into it, do it. I guess I'm digressing, but I think I just found something that I really loved.
Yeah.
And maybe, like we talked about earlier, that doing something that I didn't love, being the computers at university, which might have been the situation. Like if I went back and studied now, I'm sure it'd be different. But I just didn't get much out of that at all. Yeah. So, and then like even it definitely had its bumps through the road. Like sometimes I'd be sitting in a studio like for 12 hours a day, assisting, unpaid, or maybe paid like, you know, illegal wages.
Yeah.
if that, it's sort of it's less illegal to pay than nothing than it is to pay a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it was often nothing. but thinking like, I'm trained, I've got 4 years experience.
Yeah.
I could be recording this guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, and I definitely had a few of those hurdles where I'd be like frustrated and like, you know, and watching my friends in real jobs like start to earn more money and I wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
So I was earning enough, but not, you know, not like your standard trajectory of a career.
Yeah.
And that's not creatively involved. So then, I think just the draw of getting over that hurdle and then seeing how everything can benefit later, even if it's not in that instance. For example, at that Fed Square job, there was I used to do lots of poetry readings, and there was these. They were great. I wasn't into poetry at the time, and the speakers were speaking so quietly, like they're not public speakers; they're poetry writers. So and they speak so quietly, and they stand 20 meters from the microphone. Let's project that across 100, 200 people, and then I was like, what am I doing here? You know, like what is this? And why is this helping? But then that made me tune my ear so that I could tune a PA exceptionally well. Yes, yeah. So then I can roll into Splendor in the Grass and mix a gig to 10,000 people and not question like there's feedback happening. Where's that coming from? Yeah. Thanks to the poetry readings.
Yeah, that's so good.
I think it's when you get to the hurdles, think about, well, you know, and the amount of contacts that I gained, mostly other engineers, which a lot of the time, especially early on, and especially in live, you know, all of the work comes from the other engineers. Yeah, yep. So I like, and for me, like I can't do this tour. I'll call my friend and say, hey, what are you doing in September? Can you do this tour? Yeah, yep. And so that's the way it works. So then just looking past the bits that aren't so exciting. Yeah.
And looking for the gold.
That's right, yeah.
The golden moment.
There we go.
There we go.
That nice.
Always got to find a way to sneak that in. But yeah, that reminds me of a really great story I read about Thelonious Monk, the jazz pianist, who.
Is that on your album?
What's that?
Didn't you sing about that guy or something? No.
No, I don't think so. But I just absolutely love him. I love his music. I love his approach. I love, he pioneered the bebop kind of movement in jazz. Essentially, really started with him. A lot of people get credit, like John Coltrane or whatever. But he's phenomenal. But there's this great story in his biography where lots of people were learning from him. So they would come to his house, and he had developed a lot of like harmonic stuff in jazz that other people were like, what is he doing? Had no idea. And so Miles Davis learned from him, and everyone basically, Charlie Parker. And one of them was at his house, and he had the radio on, and there was some like country song on, some country and western thing playing. And this other cool jazz cat was bagging it, just like, this is so lame and simple and there's nothing going on here. And he just sat there and in silence for about 30 seconds. And then he said, just listen to what the drummer's doing. Listen to what he's doing with the brushes.
Oh, yeah.
And they just listen. He's like, and then he just talked about that. And he's like, there's always something, in the music. If you listen really hard, you'll find something you can bring into what you're doing. So that's kind of reminding me of that. Like the brushes is like the poet with the microphone 10 meters away going, and then the sunrise, whatever. But if you're attuned to kind of pulling out the lesson or whatever, it can really hone your skills.
And then you can suddenly focus on that, in that example of the song.
Yeah.
And really, rather than get nothing out of the experience at all, because you're like, it's whatever, for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly.
With recording the less experienced bands with the less experienced songwriting earlier on in my career, and which is a question a lot of people ask, like, what do you do if there's a band you don't like, or if you don't like the song or whatever? It's inevitably going to happen. And I always find that, especially if it's a different genre, it's sort of easier, but to explain, well, not necessarily, but anyway, it doesn't matter how good or bad it is. You just find one element. So say it's a bad band. They're playing out of time. The guitars are out of tune, whatever it might be. The song's bad. You focus on, there'll generally be one element, like the brushes, that is really good, and then I'll focus on that. For instance, it might be the guitarist in the band. But, well, the guitarist is really holding this band together. And so maybe I'll double track his part, because then it will sound really big. And then his rhythm's good, the drummer's rhythm's not so good, so I'll have that higher in the mix and basically choose that thing that's really good, or might not be really good, but it's better than the rest, and then make the whole thing a better thing, a better song, a better outcome, better recording. So, and that's been really good, because then it's like, because if you're sitting there with the analogy of, this is a terrible band, I don't want to be here recording them, you should just tell them that and leave, because it's not going to help them. It's not going to help you. It's you go back to the ball bearing job, So change, whenever I'd find I'd get in that mindset of, if I'd fall into the trap of, he's not very good, so this is going to be a bad recording. I'd go, how can I make this a better product? And say, well, the guitarist is good, so I'll focus on that.
It seems like, even from working with you, something that really comes through, and I think it's coming through in this sort of conversation, is having a positive attitude, just like like constantly having a positive attitude. Is that reflected back to you often? Just that you're buoyant, you tend to see the brighter side, you're able to, find the gold amongst the muck.
Yeah.
How important is that in what you do?
Well, I think it's crucial. It really is, because especially in the studio, because the studio it's like a mind game. It's like the best place in the world, and it's the worst, and it's the scariest, and it's the most exciting, especially for the artist. It's most of the time paying for the time to be there. So like if you're like suddenly put down, whether it be $5 or $50,000, regardless of the amount of money put in, always that concern of, was this worth spending whatever it was? And then as soon as you start to think about that whilst you're in the studio, it's gone.
Done for.
So you need to, and it's normal to get there, but then you've got to get out of it quickly. So I find like staying positive, being flexible really gets then, like if I'm flexible and positive and helpful, then I get the best out of the artist. Yeah. And then that's just going to help both of us. Yeah. So I think it's crucial, because if the artist is more relaxed, or let's say that it's getting to, say we plan to record 3 songs and we're almost at the end of the day and we've recorded 1. Yeah. Then figuring out a way for me to explain to everyone that it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Figuring out there's a million, ways that could be okay, and just figuring it out. So then we could, because we might not have quite finished that 1 song, and I think it's like, I might decide I think it's best to finish this 1 song and get it really good than to get 3 that are all rushed. Yeah. And focus on the positives of that. And now I can see it in the artist or the band. They just suddenly will relax, because they're not like, okay, that's done, let's move on.
Yeah, it's the worst way to be in the creative mode, like to be in a panicky state or whatever. Exactly. So, that's really interesting. The mind game aspect of it, I think, is like super important. So I don't know if you know, but I work with artists, and it's all mindset stuff. So I have this, I run workshops on this, like creativity mindset mastery is what I call it. But what's that?
That's the heart of it all.
It is, yeah, because that's kind of ultimately what I realized at one point, because I'd kind of quit my job and moved overseas, moved to Berlin to do music, and even that move was like really huge. Like it was a mindset thing, which we'll get to with your recent move. And then I was touring, with amazing artists like with Gautier and all this stuff all around Europe, and then I came back to doing my own tours, and I just realized it was a mindset thing, that I was like, if I don't handle my beliefs around, I don't know, who I am as an artist and my identity as an artist, whether I can do this or not, then it's just going to chew me up. So I spent a lot of time just reading lots of books, and like got a mentor and all that stuff. And Claire Bowditch, who you probably know, kind of mentored me for a time. And I just figured out I would almost say it's 100% of the game, whether you continue or not. There's like people throw stuff around about mindset, like it's 80% mindset, 20% mechanics, just like going through the actions of doing it. But the mechanics don't happen if the mindset isn't there. Yeah. So I'm like totally, a devotee of this idea that, your mindset is just so crucial in whether you move forward or not, whether you kind of get taken out, because basically your entire reality is being created in here, like you're with your brain. So if your brain's not helping you, it's hurting you. So in the recording studio, like even the session that I did with you, like, I really had to prepare mentally for it. I knew
because the weight wasn't on anyone else.
That's right. Yeah. I'm paying for the studio. I'm paying for the guys, paying for producer Marty Brown, who came in. So
he did
an awesome job. So yeah, that can be so easy to be like, this is costing me like this amount of money, and we fucked that take up, and we're recording to tape as well. So like added pressure. So yeah. So I won't go further into that, but yeah, really had to prepare myself so I could be really relaxed. And I have to say that working with you, one of the reasons I chose to, record at Newmarket was because of you, your temperament and your attitude when we came in and had, a listening session.
Great.
And the way that you worked really supported that. So, I think you've become quite expert in managing that space and the mindset and emotions of the people you're working with. The thing I recall the most is for a lot of it, you're just very relaxed and you set that tone like, all right, this is all cool. It's all fine. And you were like this phantom who would just come in and like fix stuff and make things happen. And like your headphones are right there. This is there. So I didn't have to like think about too much or have any added stress or whatever. It was just such a smooth process. So
it's a very intentional thing. I'm glad you noticed.
Yeah.
Because all of those little things, like if your headphones are glitching, one side's dropping out or something, like that's so distracting. And then creatively, you can't create if you've got a distraction.
Yeah. No,
so
it takes you out of it.
As an engineer, like I really try and minimize those things. And like you said, there it goes to try and so that you don't notice if there's anything wrong, you don't know about it.
Yes,
you're knowing whilst we're having a conversation about something else, so you don't know.
Yeah.
I say to you, the tape machine's fucked.
Yeah.
You're like, that's the reason we came here. Like that'd be like your heart would just die, So, so if it didn't, but if it, I would diffuse it and change something and fix it, and then without you even knowing about it.
Yeah.
And and working with the producer, with Marty in that instance, which I love. Often I'll do both, produce and engineer, and which I enjoy. But and depends on the situation. But there's a reason why there's two jobs.
Yeah,
Especially back in fully analog days,
it
was very hard. There was just so much to do as an engineer that you sort of produce in a sense. But you would but so with Marty there, that means that I can even do an even better job of that.
Yeah. You can really focus in and get it right and be very present.
Yeah. So then, and then just fixing something without you noticing, like, because Marty will be in the middle of a conversation with you about something, and I've changed it whilst you're, taking a breath doing that. So that was, I guess you got a even better side of me because I didn't have the you said weight or hat on, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it was a really enjoyable session. I had a great time.
Yeah. Me too. Loved it. Cool. Let's chat about present day. So, the transition into the extension of your story, I suppose, has kind of continued to expand so that you decided to move to LA and your family. So you have two kids. Yeah.
Now 2 and 4 now.
Yeah. Cool.
So
the stakes are even sort of higher in a sense of making career decisions like this.
They could not be higher.
Yeah. So what initially prompted you to go to LA, and then how has that transition been, and what are the challenges been? And
my wife is American, and she lived. Right. I met her in Austin, Texas, which for South by Southwest back in 2012. I met her.
Yeah.
12. And I was on tour, and she was working in music licensing at the time.
Yeah.
And I was on tour with Big Scary, and she was doing licensing for Big Scary. So that's how we, the connection was there. So, and then, short story, she moved to Australia. We got married. We had 2 kids. And so she lived in LA. She's not from LA, but she had like 15 years here. So she's always had a draw to come back here.
Yeah.
And go back to LA. So, and me as a, I love travel, and I've done mostly touring, but I love regardless. I've never done like travel year or anything like that, but I've visited so many countries, visited almost every corner of Australia, all thankful to or luckily mostly because of touring. And then at the tour, I might tack on a holiday at the end or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always loved touring, but as far as moving even cities, which I like to move countries, before I met her, I don't think I would have ever done that. I would have talked about it, but would have been too scary, too big of a thing to change. When I moved from the country where I was in the house that I grew up in from between 2 and 18. We never moved.
Yep. And
then I moved to Melbourne, and I pretty much didn't move out of the Carlton postcode for 10 years.
Yeah.
Or 15 years. So I moved houses, but like barely even moved postcodes.
Yeah. You moved houses, but not shopping centre. Like you still shop at the same place, go and sit on the cafes.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So then there was the draw to come here, and as far as me being an engineer producer, like music is huge in Los Angeles. It's just there's so much. It's incredible. Like the population of LA County is like 10 million or something, which is half the population of Australia. So it's like not all those people in music, but and then because LA and Hollywood and just everything LA is so music or film or TV or anything, so much creative stuff going on.
Yeah.
That it was like a huge opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Scary thing, one of the a million scary things for me was being freelance, which I was even at my role at Newmarket as a manager there. There was no wage. It was commission-based setup. So it was all based on my client base. And talked about the networks, the different avenues of work. I like for me to move countries, even if I was to move to Sydney, for example, like 80% of my clients would not be able to work with me anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought anyway. So then moving to America, where the Australian scene is really strong and it's great, and and within Australia there's certain bands that do exceptionally well, but then beyond Australia, never heard of.
Yeah. And
then that's changing with the times, like now with Spotify and social media. Like if a band goes well, it's more likely that it'll go well worldwide.
Yeah.
Than it would have pre-internet, But so moving to America, where most of the artists I'd worked with, for example, I've got a gold record for a single for British India in Australia. But like they have had a release here, but no one, only Australians have heard of them. And they're great. They were huge. They had like a 10-year career in touring and so many albums, and no one knows them here. So and that at the time at the time was one of the biggest albums I'd done. So for the biggest album I've done to mean nothing. Scary thing. It's like, well, if you haven't heard of that, you haven't heard of anything, you know?
Yeah. So
And
kind of, in a way, starting from scratch, or the credibility that often you use to pull in work and clients or whatever just gets like squashed down to one line or something.
So then I was lucky. I had one album that Courtney Barnett and Kurt Vile record.
Yeah.
Lotta Sea Lice.
Yeah.
That did well internationally.
Yeah.
So very fortunate that I had that up my sleeve, and it was quite recent. It was released the year before I got here.
Yeah.
Released in like October or something, and I came in June 2018. So it's quite fresh, and everyone loved it.
Yeah.
So especially in indie music, like, which is predominantly my scene, I guess.
Yeah.
So when I came here, or even beforehand, if just like sending emails and cold calling, like it would at least get some introductions and open a few doors, because I had one album, which was really helpful. But basically, like, aside from that, and I'd worked with a few known live bands touring, like doing live sound. Yeah. That were Vance Joy, for example. And so they were known here, but I hadn't recorded their album. And most of the work I was looking for, especially with kids now, I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old going on tour. I've done it here, and it's great. I love it, but it's not a family sport. I'm so fortunate that I have the studio skills, so I don't have to all the time. Yeah. I just did a tour with Courtney here. She did a solo tour, which is basically a month, 30 days I'm gone. Yeah. And that's usually from the first of the month to the end of the month. Yeah. Whereas in Australia, which you should be doing right now. Most of the time is weekends. You leave Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. And you do between 1 and 10 times for a tour. So it's so different because there's so many more markets here. So then into that world. So for me to come here, because live was a good way I could step into live quite easily here because there's so much going on. But then I'm not here. It's just harder on the family, basically. So coming here, it's figuring out what's going to be the best thing to do as far as how to start expanding the network. And after talking to everyone, the various people, and chatting it through, both friends in Australia, friends here, through my wife's friends, through anyone that I've met, and a lot of it was initially introductions. So I'd ask person A, and they'd say, "Oh, I know person B, C, and D. They live in LA. I'll introduce you." And then you hit them up, and then when I first got here, basically the first 6 months, I was just going on coffees, go and have a beer, whatever it might be. Yeah. And just to chat, and and some of those, like I would have had like, I don't know how many, lots of those chats. And it was awesome, and some of them have led to nothing, and some of them have have led to lots. Yeah. And also it's just about a time, like that network that I built up over my time in Melbourne. Yeah. There's just no way of rushing that. The only way you can rush it, the same as being an artist, like unless you ride a riptide like Vance Joy did, there's no skipping any steps. You've just got to do the slog and you know, just do it. So it's the same thing. So here then it's like some meetings that I had a year ago. Then it's like, get an email saying, "Oh, can you do this mix, or can you record this session, or whatever it might be?" And then out of that, I really find it so valuable here. I think because now I can see what I had in Melbourne. Yeah. The music industry is kind of small, and you kind of know everyone. So when I meet a new person, a new artist, for example, that I haven't met.
Mm.
And then especially like if it's a band, like there's going to be 4 of them. It's so exciting for me because it's like, that's like potentially like 50 people I can meet, you know?
Yeah.
Whether that may be a professional relationship, might be to go surfing on the weekend. It might be, who knows? But
yeah,
it could really turn, you just don't know what it's going to turn into. And then, so it's just been the slow, just chipping away, just doing everything I did with the advantage of I've done it. So I know, you know, it was interesting. You mentioned you had a mentor when you're in, you had Claire when you're in Berlin around that time. I was really trying really hard to find a mentor here. And I searched and I offered to pay some people, and interestingly, nothing. I just couldn't find anyone suitable, which I think was basically. I'm kind of like I'm not young enough and inexperienced enough to. I'm not big enough to be world famous.
Yeah,
Stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of not valued as well. I am valuable to someone to take on, but it was a hard sell, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm already established. I am making records that are listened to the world. So, but it was just that interesting middle ground. So then it was a bit of a realization. It's like, well, no one's going to do this for me. I can be my own mentor.
Yeah.
I can sort of, by looking at other people's careers, which is Instagram's a great thing for that. Just like looking at people that I admire's Instagram and seeing what they do.
Yeah.
That's my mentor, you know, like seeing, if Sean Everett's working with this person now, that's interesting. That producer works with this band. Oh, interesting. Oh, the drummer from that band. Oh, interesting. So it's just like they're doing the same thing. Yeah. We're all doing the same thing. And whichever level you're at, you always think you've got further to go, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And so
it's a never-ending journey of learning and progressing and owning everything. I think it's exciting. It makes it exciting.
Like you said, you mentioned professional development, which was somewhat what the album's about, right? Was that?
Yeah.
Am I saying that? That was kind of, I didn't even contemplate thinking about before thinking about this move to LA.
Yeah, right.
And then thinking about, well, if I'm going to come here, like what's the point? Why? You know, and how am I going to benefit? Am I going to benefit by watching someone else work? Probably, yes. But it's hard for me because I'm not 20 years old. You know, then like if someone asked me if they could make cups of tea for me in this little space, the reality is it's like, well, you can come and have a chat. I'd love to have a chat, but beyond that, probably not suitable. Yeah. So I was figuring out how to do it, and really the bottom line is, well, you just got to do it yourself. Just keep going, and that's what I did. Like this studio this is our one-car garage at home. Yeah. And I asked the landlord, we don't own the house, and I asked him, like, do you think I can build a studio in there? I don't think he really knew the degree of the studio that I was going to build. Yeah. But so I just built it and then just did it. And now I've got a soundproof studio, which is like 10 feet from our back door. It's perfect.
Yeah. That's great.
It's just creating. I just found I've just got to create it myself. And then it'll slowly work. And I'm very fortunate to still have the Australian networks that I have. Yeah. With artists, and not even just artists, but managers and labels in Australia. I'll still get work from them here, mixing work. Yeah. Or lots of Australian artists have asked me to tour, and I've done tours with Alex Leahy and
cool.
bunch of bands that have Australian based but come here, Courtney Barnett, come here, and it's a great sell because I can just jump on, I can speak the language, so to speak.
Yeah. You know the vibe, the Aussie vibe.
Yeah. And I'm on the ground and I could call and advance the tour. And
and for them it's such a benefit too, like having you there already, because, you know, I've looked at going to the US and visas is just such an epic thing to overcome, and paying for someone's flight from Australia to. So that's a boon for them. They get an awesome sound engineer.
Yeah. I'm lucky, and through, because I'm married an American, I've got a permanent resident. I'm a green card.
Oh, that's so good. It's great.
I'm very lucky. I remember just before I left, I was like basically looking at Newmarket, what I'd built, because Newmarket had been there for years, but like it had been there since '86. It's a long time, but I'd sort of opened it up to indie music and into, let's call it the Triple J scene kind of thing. Like I'd opened the world. It was predominantly jazz and classical. They did some rock and roll records, but not a lot.
Yeah.
So then I opened that up, built up the that world, and then I felt like we're finally in a position that everything's going great. Studios, and I'm throwing it all away.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's right. And then my friend said to me, just remember, like, there'd be like an endless list of people that would kill to do what I'm doing. Giving to them, I have the visa, like the green card way cheaper than a visa. Like, it's like, I'm so lucky, you know? So remembering that when it's all a bit tough, like I remember that conversation. It's like,
and it feels like it's a natural part of your trajectory of what you've been doing. It's kind of like, I thought about this also with music and the Melbourne music scene or whatever. You can become that big fish in a small pond, or kind of go off and take a leap and become a small fish again in a bigger pond. Because, you know, the analogy of goldfish, they grow to the extent of their environment. And I think that's really true. You know, you put yourself in a new environment of LA where there's lots of stuff happening. There's lots of opportunity. It's obviously challenging, has its challenges, but the upside is potentially so much greater that it's, and I guess you've made this calculation that it's worth the risk, you know, to kind of, put that aside and then kind of start from scratch again. So it's a very, it's an admirable move, you know. I think risk taking is just an important part of developing as a human, but as a creative person. I think it's if your tolerance for risk is really low, I think the industry kind of spits you out pretty quick, and have to be willing to take a couple of risks.
That's right, and I think, and that got me thinking, like, getting back to the professional development, like it's like, it's kind of perfect timing for me. Like I've had 15 years in Melbourne, building up my career, building up my client base, building up the artists that I've worked with, and now, like, I mean, nothing wrong with staying in Melbourne. Melbourne's got incredible music,
absolutely,
and I miss it every day. But it's like perfect, you know. And I don't know. We don't know as a family whether it will be forever or whether it will be. We're looking at it in blocks of 5 years, and then we make a decision every 5 years. So
cool, that's great.
Which, one thing that has been really helpful coming here, because I come, meet all these different people, and find all these amazing studios. That's one thing that's incredible about LA. Like say Newmarket, at that level in Melbourne, there's, I don't know, maybe, let's say 10 or 20 of that level studios, probably not even 20, probably 10.
Yeah, I'd say.
And
I visited them a lot of them.
Right.
Newmarket was very much at the top.
And there's like one or two that are above Newmarket, then there's Newmarket and the other 10, and then the next level down.
Yeah.
here, Newmarket would be on the lowest edge of things.
Right.
Plenty of lower than that, but there'd be, I'd guess, easily 5,000 of those.
Oh, whoa.
Because there's lots of money here. Yeah. People have private studios.
Yeah.
And a lot of the private studios are like better than Newmarket. It's incredible.
Yeah, wow.
I'll meet someone who might be a musician, might be an engineer, in between, and meet in their studio, and it's like, oh my God, you've got like 4 U47s. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah. Amazing.
So yeah, there's just so much of it.
Yeah.
Daunting at first, but it shows you that it's just, you've got to look at it as exciting, you know.
Yeah. So we might start winding this baby up. I feel like, again, we're just scratching the surface. Even I'd love to go deeper into the transition into LA, and just getting that little nugget is a bit like mind blowing, of like just the amount of studios and high quality sort of studios and the money that's just sloshing around in LA for, you know, sound stuff. If you can kind of tap into it, sounds like amazing potential. So yeah, we've covered some really great stuff here, like through your journey. One of the questions I find interesting is if you did go back, just say you were mentoring someone or you were mentoring yourself back in the day, you know, your 20-year-old self or whatever, what are some of the key things you would tell them to do and not do?
Great question.
Yeah.
Well, because it's interesting, because I think about that, like, say we're talking about the career, like the start of my career, I was not doing anything related to audio or music. So in a sense, I could say, Callum, don't just go straight for that. But
yeah.
I think it was kind of perfect that it was just 2 years, enough to get the moving out of home, being 18, having a license, being able to go to the pub, like getting that out of my system before going. Because I'm sure I would have loved it, but I don't think I would have got as much out of it. So
yeah,
I don't think I would say don't do that. You know, I'd say do the same thing. The thing that I would say would be to like dive a bit deeper with, well, maybe reach higher for the stars. That would be, because I'd think about, like, say assisting at Newmarket. Like I was super lucky that I got that pretty early, and because after me being a manager of Newmarket, in the last sort of 5 years, and there's a lot more universities offering sound engineering, so there's a lot more looking for work experience. So my experience of managing Newmarket, the number one email inquiry that I would get is work experience, over recording inquiries. Wow. So it's super competitive just to get an unpaid job. You know?
Yeah.
So
and when we were recording, you had an assistant there, Angus.
Oh, Angus, yeah, nice.
Angus, who he was great and just soaking up the vibes.
Oh yeah, we had it was, I mean, it's awesome to have them, and it's just so crazy how many inquiries we get. And so I was really lucky to get that early on. But so then I think I got comfortable in that, and then it's really hard to think, because then I went to Bakehouse, the lower studio, but the contacts I got out of that, the contacts and the networking, even though the level of studio was lower, like I think it helped me to get my own name in a sense. Because I was going to say maybe dive deeper, like for instance, Sing Sing, which is an amazing studio. Yeah. And who I've now done lots of work out of, but as an engineer. But I did try to get some work experience, assistant work there earlier on, but I didn't try very hard.
Yeah.
So that'd be one regret, is like, just try a bit harder. But in saying that,
it's an impossible question, isn't it?
But then in a sense, I was lucky because I skipped the assistant path at Sing Sing and I went straight to an engineer.
Yeah.
I didn't get work from them, but I'd bring clients in and work using studios. So I think, and then also just also with the touring, because a lot of the more known bands that I would work with, both in the studio and live, I think I'd try and dive a bit deeper in trying to get more of those known artists.
Yeah, cool. So just having a little bit more of a strategy to be consistently reaching out to that next level of artist or next level of studio or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but kind of, like just a little bit beyond where you are, whatever it might be.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. That's awesome. Yeah, cool. Awesome. It's been really great chatting.
Yeah. Because
when we're in the studio, you get a sense of each other and you get to have a bit of a chat. But this has been a great opportunity to actually, learn more about you and your journey and what you're doing.
I enjoy talking about it. I hope someone can get something.
Yeah, I'd love to do a part 2. We should catch up again in a couple of months or something. Maybe when...
Or on the LA studios in part 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get the full lowdown. And so if anyone is loving what they're hearing from you, where's the best place they can go check out, who you've worked with and what you're doing and how to work with you? My
website, which is callumbarter.com, is probably the best place to go. And then for a bit more of an entertaining, or somewhat entertaining, I think it's entertaining, would be my Instagram, which is Cal Barter, CalBarter. On Instagram, which is that's got more of day-to-day, and I post most releases that I've worked on, and also a bit of LA life in the stories. So that's
great tour pics with Courtney and all sorts of stuff. People should definitely follow you there. Awesome. Well, thanks, man. Enjoy the sunshine.
Thanks for having me on, and keep on writing those amazing songs.
I will. Cheers. See you, man. Bye. All right, cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed that chat with Cal. He is one smooth dude. So thanks again to Cal for sharing all the ins and outs of his life in, sound engineering. So if you want to learn more about Cal's work, you can go to callumbarter.com. So there'll be links in the show notes to all of this as well, but it's callumbarter.com. You should get in touch with him. You can find him on all the social links that he shared. While you're there, you can also get a free download of a few of exclusive tracks of mine from Golden Moment and other tracks by going to mijobiscan.com/free music as one word. And if you like to hear some more of his engineering on Golden Moment, head to mijobiscan.com to stream it, and you can get yourself a signed copy sent to your door anywhere in the world, special for podcast listeners. So wherever you're watching this, I hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to get notifications of future episodes. Give us a thumbs up or a rating or a like, and please, if it's available to you, join the conversation beneath this video or audio with the community below. I always love hearing from you, and the conversation doesn't really stop when the podcast stops. It's really a prompter for us to talk about this topic further. So thanks for listening, and bye for now.